Welcome to day 10 of UPSC previous year question revision. And today I will cover GS3, GS4, like five questions from each, and thereafter the essay. So I already completed like 10 questions, and today I will start with question number 11. And at the end of it, I will go through the entire question paper, not today, but in the next video, so that if you want to have like one complete paper, then you can see it. So let's get started. Question number 11. Explain how the fiscal health index can be used as a tool for assessing the fiscal performance of states in India. In what way would it encourage the states to adopt prudent and sustainable fiscal policies? The fiscal health index is a comprehensive framework used to evaluate the financial performance of states. It shifts the analytical focus from raw absolute indicators to relative structural macro fiscal parameters, helping assess the quality of public financial management. FHI as an assessment tool. The index aggregates 4 key subpartners to evaluate states: fiscal deficit to GSDP ratio, measures compliance with standard FRBM legislation limits, own tax revenue growth, tracks a state's autonomous capacity to generate revenue, moving away from structural central devolution dependence, debt to GSDP ratio, evaluates long-term solvency and structural debt sustainability metrics, capital outlay ratio, measures the quality of expenditure by calculating how much revenue is directed into productive asset creation over welfare revenue consumption, encouraging prudent and sustainable fiscal policies. Performance-linked devolution pool, integrating FHI indicators into Finance Commission recommendation creates direct financial incentives, rewarding states that manage their budgets responsibly with increased tax devolution. Competitive fiscal federalism. Publishing transparent FHI rankings introduced performance comparisons, encouraging underperforming states to expand their tax bases and streamline non-merit subsidies. Lowering institutional borrowing costs. High FHI scores improve credit ratings in bond markets, allowing fiscally disciplined states to secure developmental loans at lower interest rates. Operationalizing the FHI transforms state budgets from political tool into legally compliant instruments of fiscal sustainability, matching the financial stability targets outlined by the Niti Aayog. Discuss the rationale of the production-linked incentive scheme. What are its achievements? In what way can the functioning and outcomes of the scheme be improved? The PLI scheme is a major component of India's manufacturing strategy. It offers direct financial incentives, 4 to 6%. Let me correct it. It offers direct financial incentives, 4 to 6% on incremental sales to scale up domestic manufacturing, attract foreign investment, and reduce deep import dependencies. Rationale of the scheme. Overcoming structural cost hurdles. Offsets high internal logistics, power, and capital costs that historically reduced the competitiveness of Indian manufacturing compared to global peers. Achieving economies of scale. Moves past fragmented micro production units, encouraging large-scale manufacturing to secure cost efficiencies. Global value chain integration. Aims to position India as a key manufacturing alternative in global supply chains, specifically across high technology sectors. Key institutional achievements. Electronic transformation driven by massive mobile manufacturing expansion, it turned India into a net global exporter of smartphones. Foreign direct investment inflows attracted substantial greenfield manufacturing investment across sectors like critical bulk drug, advanced chemistry cells, and telecommunication equipments. Measures for improvement: strengthening domestic component supply chains, shift the incentive structures to promote the local production of upstream raw components, avoiding a reliance on importing parts just for final assembly, supporting MSME integration, simplify complex application processes, lower high turnover thresholds to help domestic MSMEs participate as suppliers to larger manufacturers, improving fund disbursement timelines, streamline administrative verification steps to ensure faster payout of earned incentives, improving cash flow for businesses. Expanding the PLI framework to include labor-intensive industries will turn it into a powerful tool for global export growth and sustainable job creation. Examine the factors responsible for depleting groundwater in India. What are the steps taken by the government to mitigate such depletion of groundwater? According to Central Groundwater Board reports, India is the world's largest user of groundwater, extracting more than the US and China combined. This heavy reliance has placed nearly one-third of the country's aquifer blocks under critical overexploited stress condition. Factors responsible for depletion: cropping distortions. Distorted price safety nets favor water-intensive crops like paddy and sugarcane in rain-deficient regions, driving massive aquifer extraction. Power subsidies. The provision of heavily subsidized or free electricity for agriculture leads to unrestricted continuous extraction using high power pumps. Unregulated extraction laws. Outdated colonial era legal frameworks link groundwater rights directly to land ownership, leaving the state with limited power to curb excessive private drilling. Urbanization pressures. Rapid concrete construction prevents natural rainwater infiltration, blocking the regular recharge of urban aquifers. Government mitigation steps. Atal Bhujal Yojana, a major community-led program focused on sustainable groundwater management through local water security plans in water-stressed states. PMKSY, per drop, more crop, drives the adoption of micro irrigation technologies like drip and sprinkler setups to reduce agricultural water demand. Jal Shakti Abhiyan focuses on seasonal water conservation campaigns, prioritizing rainwater harvesting and restoration of traditional step wells. Aquifer mapping. Deploy advanced geospatial tools to accurately map underground aquifers, enabling better region-specific management. Moving from supply-side extraction to demand-side management, paired with strict legal limits on deep drilling, is essential to protect India's long-term water security. Examine the scope of the food processing industries in India. Elaborate the measures taken by the government in the food processing industry for generating employment opportunities. The food processing industry acts as a vital structural bridge between agriculture and manufacturing. Given India's status as a top global producer of milk, fruits, vegetables, grains, and marine products, the sector holds immense developmental potential. Scope of the FPI in India. Value addition potential. Processing less than 10% of total agricultural output reveals huge room for growth in converting raw harvest into high margin consumer products. Reducing post-harvest losses. High post-harvest waste present a major opportunity to build cold chains, freezing network and processing centers near farm gates. Changing consumer demands. Rapid urbanization and rising disposable incomes are driving domestic demand for packaged, ready-to-cook and healthy foods. Government measures for employment generation. PM Kisan Sampada Yojana funds modern it funds modern infrastructure like mega food parks and integrated cold chains, creating direct manufacturing and logistic jobs in rural areas. PM FME scheme provides financial and technical support to formalize micro enterprises, boosting employment across smaller or unorganized food units. PLI scheme for food processing incentivizes large-scale food manufacturing, encouraging investments that expand processing plants and create new industrial jobs. 100% FDI automatic route, allowing full foreign direct investment in food retailing, attract global capital, driving job growth across modern warehouses and logistic networks. Developing the food processing sector stabilizes farm incomes, curb retail inflation, and serves as a major driver of sustainable rural employment. How does nanotechnology offers significant advancements in the field of agriculture? How can this technology help to uplift the socio-economic status of the farmers? Nanotechnology involves manipulating matter at the atomic scale, 1 to 100 nanometer, micrometer, what it is. This is a unit, okay. Okay, let me correct it as well. Sorry. Actually, it is in microns. I do not know. In agriculture, it marks a shift away from traditional resource-intensive farming, introducing precision techniques that maximizes output while reducing environmental stress. Significant advancements in agriculture. Traditional input, smart nanofertilizers. Traditional inputs like urea suffer from high volatilization and leaching losses. Nano formulations, example nano urea developed by IFCO, ensure slow targeted nutrient release directly into plant tissue, significantly boosting absorption efficiencies. Precision nanopesticides, encapsulating active chemical agents within nanometer allows for release controlled release triggered by specific environmental cues, cutting overall pesticides consumption. Nanosensors for real-time insights. Deploying wireless nanosensors across fields enables continuous monitoring of soil moisture, nutrient level, and early crop diseases, allowing for timely interventions. Extended shelf life. Nanocomposite packaging materials provide superior thermal barriers that slow food spoilage, preserving produce during transit. Uplifting the socio-economic status of farmer, lowering input cost, exceptional nutrient delivery efficiency, reduces the volume of fertilizers and pesticides farmers need to purchase, lowering seasonal input bills, boosting yield, quality, and profit margins. Precision crop protection leads to higher harvest volumes and better quality produce, commanding premium prices in markets. Building climate resilience, nanobiostimulants strengthen crop tolerance against climate shock like drought or soil salinization, protecting smallholders' income from crop failure. Integrating nanotechnology into national programs like the Submission on Agricultural Mechanization helps modernize farming, boosting profitability and environmental sustainability. Okay, so 5 questions are completed now. I will do the remaining questions of GS4. So I already completed question 5A till 5A yesterday. So I will start with question 5B. You will get the entire paper in one video, but not today, maybe after 2-3 days. Question 5B. To achieve holistic developmental goals, a civil servant acts as an enabler and active facilitator of growth rather than a regulator. What specific measures will you suggest to achieve this goal? Transitioning from a controlling regulator to a proactive enabler requires a cultural shift in public administration, moving away from a command and control approach towards collaborative, citizen-centric governance. Specific suggested measures. Implementing subsidiarity. Devolve decision-making authority down to local panchayati raj institutions, enabling communities to direct their own development priorities. Cooperative public-private frameworks. Simplify complex regulatory processes and introduced transparent single window clearance to encourage private innovation and social entrepreneurship. Citizen-centric, citizen centricity and open governance. Set up citizen character frameworks, institutionalize regular social audits, and utilize platforms like MyGov to co-create public policies with direct community feedback. Attitudinal shift framework. Redesign civil service training modules under Mission Karma Yogi to replace a rigid, rule-bound mindset with an empathetic problem-solving approach. Shifting the administrative focus from imposing restrictions to expanding opportunities enable civil servant to unlock sustainable inclusive growth across society. Question 6a. It is said that for an ethical work culture, there must be code of ethics in place in every organization. To ensure value-based and compliance-based work culture, what suitable measures would you adopt in your workplace? An ethical work culture balances a compliance-based framework adhering to formal legal rules with a value-based approach, internalizing core moral principles like honesty and fairness to guide organizational behavior. Suitable measures for adoption. Institutionalize a dual code. Pair a strict code of conduct defining legal boundaries with an aspirational code of ethics to guide daily institutional decision making. Lead by personal examples. Practice transparent value-based leadership to set a high standard of integrity across the organization. Anonymized whistleblower protection. Set up secure internal channels that protect employees who report wrongdoing from institutional retaliation. Regular participatory ethics audits. Conduct interactive training sessions that use real-world administrative dilemmas to help staff internalize ethical values. Combining clear rules with shared moral values transforms compliance from a mandatory burden into an organic everyday organizational habit. Question 6b. India is an emerging economic power of the world as it has recently secured the status of the fourth largest economy of the world as per IMF projection. However, it has been observed that in some sectors, allocated fund remains either underutilized or misutilized. What specific measures would you recommend for ensuring accountability in this regard to stop leakages and gaining the status of third largest economy of the world in near future? India's now look, this is an economic question. Can you see it? Earlier we see in the video they ask a question from history. So ethics is not independent. They can ask, you have to face questions like from economy. This is a hardcore economic question, right? They just ask a last line like, for example, this accountability. This is a concept in ethics. So they just ask everything related to economy, but they ask how accountability plays a role in that. But if you do not have that economy knowledge, you cannot tackle this question. In the same way, in earlier, like in the last video, they asked a question related to history. Mahavira, Jain Tirthankara. So you have to means the ethics is not independent. That is what I am trying to say. Like out of 13 questions, 2 questions are from GS. India's rise toward becoming the world's third largest economy relies heavily on optimizing public spending efficiency. We must transition away from simple resource allocation to a strict focus on measurable leakage-free implementation. Allocated public resources, this is a flow diagram you can see. Specific recommended measures. Mandatory outcome-based budgeting shift administrative focus from tracking simple expenditures to measuring actual developmental outcomes on the ground. Real-time financial tracking. Use the public financial management system PFMS and end-to-end direct benefit transfer networks to prevent intermediate fund divergence and block systemic leaks. Institutional social audits empowers local community to conduct mandatory social audits for infrastructure projects using mobile governance tools to report irregularities instantly. Strict oversight framework strengthen the oversight roles of the CAG and departmental parliamentary committees to penalize delayed or underutilized budget lines. Strengthening financial transparency and administrative accountability ensures public funds drive sustainable infrastructure growth and secure long-term economic expansion. Okay, so this is section B, which is case study, and I will not gonna discuss this today. I will do it like in the next video, that is tomorrow mostly. Now let's start with the essay. Truth knows no color. In the legal annals of ancient Athens, the drying ground of the Areopagus hosted trials under the bare open sky. The judges sat in absolute silence, deliberately shielded from the rhetorical, theatricality, economic, socio-economic statures, and political affiliations of the accused. The architecture of justice sought a singular transcendental ideal to strip reality of its secondary superficial characteristics so that the bare unvarnished truth could reveal itself. The core of this ancient practice highlights a timeless truth that genuine truth is inherently colorblind. It does not alter its structural nature based on the varying use of human prejudice, political convenience, cultural variations, or ideological alignments. To declare that truth knows no color is to recognize that objective reality stands completely independent of the subjective lenses through which humanity continuously tries to filter, manipulate, and fragment it. Yet contemporary global society exists in an era of deep fragmentation marked by structural post-truth realities, hyperpolarized echo chambers, and the weaponization of customized identities. In this environment, the pristine, colorless nature of truth is constantly threatened by political spin, cultural biases, and ideological colorings. Society increasingly encounters a fractured spectrum: my truth versus your truth, red truth versus blue truth, and nationalistic narratives clashing with universal realities. This fragmentation creates a profound human dilemma. When truth is forced to take on a color, it ceases to be truth and degrades into propaganda, prejudice, or selective perception. Therefore, it is essential to re examine the objective core of truth. We must trace how human history, philosophy, politics, economics, and science have either preserved its colorless purity or suffered deeply by trying to dye it in the temporary colors of opportunistic convenience. I said in my every video that you need not to write these headings or anything. The flow should be continuous when you write an essay. But since we are in practice, and that is why you will see the headings and flow charts, flow diagrams in this essay, just because we are in practice. To understand why truth knows no color, we must first examine its basic philosophical definition. In the classical epistemology, truth is defined by the correspondence theory, which states that a proposition is true if it matches an objective, independent reality. When the ancient Indian sages declared in the Rig Veda, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti, truth is one, though the wise speak of it variedly. They were not suggesting that truth changes its nature. Rather, they were pointing out that while human interpretation can be colorful and varied, the underlying truth remains unified and uncolored. The colors belong entirely to the human observer's eye, not to the object being observed. This idea is beautifully illustrated by Plato's famous allegory of the cave. The prisoners chained inside the cave perceive the shifting, colorful shadows thrown upon the wall as the absolute truth. These shadows represent the distorted colors of social convention, unexamined opinions, and sensory illusions. It is only when a prisoner breaks free, it is only when a prisoner breaks free and climbs out into the sunlight that they see the world as it actually exists, illuminated by the pure, clear light of the sun. The sun does not color the landscape, it reveals things exactly as they are. In the same way, the pursuit of truth requires a conscious effort to look past the superficial colors of immediate perception to discover the objective principles underneath. Historical dimension. Throughout the history, whenever societies have tried to color the truth to match their prejudices, the results have been disastrous. Totalitarian regimes throughout the 20th century provide clear warning of this danger. In the Soviet Union, the state rejected traditional genetics because it did not align with communist ideology. Instead, they embraced proletarian science led by Trofim Lysenko. This politically colored version of biology ignored objective realities, resulting in terrible agricultural failures and widespread famine that cost millions of lives. The state tried to force biology to follow a specific ideological color, but nature refused to comply, showing that objective truth cannot be bent by political willpower. Similarly, the dark history of colonialism shows how powerful nations colored truth to justify global exploitation. European empires created the pseudo-scientific theory of scientific racism using distorted biological narratives to claim that white Europeans were naturally superior to other races. This colored truth was used to justify the theft of resources and the subjugation of millions across Asia, Africa, and the Americas. By the time the world recognized this narrative as a self-serving lie, centuries of exploitation had already occurred. History shows that whenever truth is dyed in colors of human arrogance or greed, it leads directly to institutional operations and human suffering. The constitutional and judicial imperative. In modern democratic governance, the principle that truth knows no color is built directly into legal framework. The universal symbol of justice, a blindfolded woman holding a pair of scales, captures this idea perfectly. The blindfold is not a sign of ignorance. It represents a commitment to objectivity. It means justice must not see the race, caste, gender, economic status, or political power of those who come before the court. The law must look past the superficial colors to evaluate the core facts of the case impartially. In the Indian constitutional framework, this principle is anchored in Article 14, which guarantees equality before the law and equal protection of the laws. The Supreme Court of India has consistently protected this colorless standard of truth in landmark judgments. For example, in the state of Karnataka versus Selvi 2010 case, the court ruled that forcing individuals to undergo narco analysis or polygraph test violates Article 20, Clause 3, that is, protection against self-incrimination, and the right to privacy under Article 21. The judiciary emphasized that the search for trust must never use methods that violate human dignity or distort justice, reinforcing that the legal discovery of truth must remain fair, objective, and untainted by administrative overreach. The socio-cultural fabric beyond the lines of caste and creed. In social life, human prejudice frequently tries to dye truth in specific colors of caste, religion, and community identity. This creates fragmented societal narratives where actions are judged not by what was done, but by who did it. This tribal thinking distorts social justice, creating double standards where the exact same action is praised when done by one's own group, but condemned when done by an outsider. The life and work of Mahatma Gandhi stood as a powerful rejection of this tribalism. Gandhi centered his entire philosophy on satyagraha, insisting on truth. For Gandhi, truth was not a flexible tool to be altered for political convenience or community bias. He famously stated, "Truth is God," emphasizing that truth is an absolute universal reality that transcends all human divisions. His campaign against untouchability was a direct challenge to the colored prejudices of his era. He argued that the practice of caste discrimination was a deep distortion of the spiritual truth that all human beings share the same divine essence. By anchoring his social and political movements in this unyielding commitment to objective truth, Gandhi showed that true social reform requires stripping away communal prejudices to recognize our shared humanity. The economic and scientific realm, the neutrality of data and discovery. The worlds of science and economics provide clear proof that truth exists independent of human opinion. A mathematical equation or a chemical reaction does not change its behavior based on the identity of the person studying it. The laws of physics operate exactly the same way in New Delhi, New York, or Nairobi. When Galileo Galilei looked through his telescope and discovered evidence supporting his heliocentric model, his findings directly challenged the colored religious doctrines of the 17th century church. The church forced him to recant and placed him under house arrest, trying to suppress his discovery. Yet their actions could not alter the orbit of the earth. As Galileo quietly muttered, "Eppur si muove," and yet it moves. The objective truth of the solar system remained completely unaffected by the political and religious preferences of the state. In modern economics, data and structural realities display a similar stubborn neutrality. Inflation, fiscal deficits, and rising unemployment figures do not alter their real-world impact to suit a government's political public relations campaigns. The Economic Survey of India consistently emphasizes that sustainable development requires looking at economic facts clearly and objectively. If a nation ignores real data on rural distress or rising economic inequality, no amount of polished rhetoric can prevent the resulting structural slowdown. Market forces and economic realities eventually expose any attempt to color the data, proving that long-term prosperity can only be built on a foundation of unvarnished economic facts. The psychological and media landscape. In the modern digital age, preserving the colorless nature of truth has become an increasingly difficult psychological challenge. The rise of social media algorithms has created powerful echo chambers that cater directly to our cognitive biases. These platforms are designed to feed users information that confirms their existing political and social views, trapping individuals in customized realities. In this environment, truth is frequently colored by our emotional preferences. People are drawn to stories that make them feel validated, regardless of whether those stories are factually accurate. This psychological vulnerability has fueled the post-truth era, where objective facts carry less weight in shaping public opinion than appeals to emotion and personal belief. Misinformation campaigns deliberately add emotional and political colors to facts to cause social division and political unrest. When public debate becomes a clash between deeply polarized, colored narratives, the shared ground needed for democratic discussion disappears. Trust in vital public institutions like the judiciary, scientific bodies, and independent media erodes rapidly, leaving society vulnerable to manipulation. Navigating this landscape requires individuals to develop strong critical thinking skills and the psychological maturity to seek out objective facts even when those facts challenge their personal beliefs. In international relations, the search for truth is constantly complicated by national self-interest and geopolitical rivalries. The field of geopolitics is often driven by realpolitik, where powerful nations routinely color the truth to justify their foreign policies. One nation's freedom fighter is frequently labeled by another as a terrorist, and interventions launched in the name of democratization are often transparent covers for securing valuable natural resources or expanding strategic influence. To counter this destructive cynicism, the international community has worked to establish universal framework based on objective truth about human dignity. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals represent collective efforts to rise above national biases. These frameworks are built on the objective truth that every human being, regardless of nationality, is entitled to fundamental rights, clean water, quality education, and safety from violence. When nations gather at forums like the UN General Assembly or the IPCC Climate Summit. Long-term success depends entirely on their willingness to face global truth objectively, such as the reality of climate change, rather than viewed through the narrow lens of short-term national advantage. To see the truth clearly, without the distorting colors of prejudice, ideology, or personal bias, is one of the highest achievements of human character. It requires intellectual honesty and the courage to accept reality even when it makes us uncomfortable or contradicts our long-held assumptions. The pursuit of truth is not a passive act. It is an active, lifelong commitment to checking our biases, questioning comfortable consensus, and standing up for objective facts in the face of widespread misinformation. As the world becomes more interconnected yet politically fragmented, protecting the colorless purity of truth is vital for the survival of democratic societies. We must deliberately strengthen our public institutions, safeguard the independence of the judiciary, support free and rigorous scientific inquiry, and cultivate a public culture that values objective evidence over emotional rhetoric. The timeless insight of Rabindranath Tagore's Gitanjali remains our best guide for the future. A vision of a society where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habits. By keeping the stream of human reason clear and uncolored, we ensure that truth remains the steady, reliable foundation for human progress, justice, and universal unity.